So this is the podcast that not only tackles the big trends in tech, but also the cloud-based solutions and software and everything that you can get involved with so your business is future-proofed as well as set up for how you want to manage things right now. So let's start off by talking about faster resolutions and incident ROI. There's a problem, and some people have called it the vicious cycle, haven't they?
Yeah, that's right. The things. So a lot of IT teams, basically, I've been in the obviously industry for many years. A lot of IT teams basically get some days have so many problems all occur, and it's usually hardware issues. Things, and I think actually we've been experiencing some of those things this evening, things with some of the hardware, and it's literally when you need help with that, it's quite difficult, things for that, especially at times of days and stuff like that. This is where we're also looking at like people like still within traditional sort of software and hardware sort of like based as well, where people are looking at their traditional sort of setups where they're using like servers and client devices, and sort of when they sort of go wrong, what do they do about that? Where can I actually go when something goes wrong? And it's basically, if the team hasn't got the knowledge of that, how people can get that sort of help. So one of the advocates we've been doing for many, many years now as Levett Consultancy is actually helping organisations meet that sort of challenge. And we've been undertaking a thing called digital transformation, which is really, all digital transformation means is literally moving to cloud technology and things. So like us as basically one of Google's first UK partners has been actually aiding businesses and schools alike to actually move to the cloud. And the idea of moving to the cloud, it allows you to actually not have to be in a fixed sort of location thing. So if you do have a hardware issue with something, you can actually go to another hardware device and actually log on to that hardware device and basically access where you left off from as well. So you're not basically encumbered where your hardware fails. What can I do? You're working on a document, you're working on creative materials, you're trying to do video editing or something along those sort of lines, and it literally all fails for you. What do you actually do? Cloud literally stores it all there. You go to another device and you pick it up again while your device is getting fixed. Things like that. So it's an actually ideal sort of things for IT teams to start looking at using cloud technology more, because it actually increases the productivity and efficiency of the end users using those sort of devices.
Let me ask you a little bit about how cloud technology can help in that respect. Can an engineer remotely get in and look at a problem for you, for that end user, rather than necessarily having to site visit as you would do with a hardware solution?
One of the things which we used to do, so like for years ago, if I like went back like 30 years ago, is literally IT was literally just a desktop, and you may be connected to a server. And then you may be lucky to have internet, because internet wasn't always available. It's just literally a PC with no internet and things. And I remember having to write business cases to be able to get internet for once, so when it first came out. And one of the first browsers we ever used was Alta Vista, which probably people don't really know too much about that stuff. And then I was told one day, there's a new shiny thing called Google. What's this? Oh, it's boring. There's nothing on the screen. And it actually become really, really popular and things with that. And literally, that sort of stuff. So that's started that sort of journey with that cloud technology, and us as a business and things, we've been fortunate to be on the journey from the right at the beginning of that actually, which is like desktops, before it actually connected to the internet, and then the internet basically gave it to all that cloud computing. And I remember years ago, I was sort of shown this is what the vision is. This is the future. This was basically like say years ago, like 2001, 2002. Showed us this is what basically technology could look like in the future, and that sort of really sort of like got me then think actually this is what we need to be looking at doing. So this is where our sort of like digital transformation sort of ideas sort of like come in place. And one of the things I was looking at all these ideas what we can do with that, because previously it was literally if something doesn't work, you've got to have a member of staff or you've got to have an employee who has to come and fix it for you. And if they've got loads of PCs to fix, or they've got lots of big issues like a server's not working properly, or backup's not working on the server, or they've got to install an update on the server, all those type of things what could happen, and it impacts that end user using devices. They've got to actually be on premise doing that all the time. And if that's and if they've got problems, and they might have a business which has got many different sites, but only can employ a couple of people doing it, so they only can be in one place at sort of one sort of time. And when I started this business, a lot of our customers wanted people doing half a day a week, 1 day a week, or half a day a fortnight and things, going in to visit their premises and doing that sort of stuff. And I always thought that was a very inefficient way of doing that. But we couldn't really move forward as much because the technology wasn't meeting the actual where we are, meets the needs of where we actually need to be. But there was it Google come along back in 2010 and actually started building platforms, and their platform was basically using productivity tools in the cloud, which I thought, well, that's quite useful. Basically, I saw that a few years prior to that, and I thought, oh, this is quite useful, and I can see why people can start using Word, Excel, PowerPoint stuff in the cloud sort of things. Obviously, Google's equivalents in Google Docs and spreadsheets and so on. But the thing is with that is literally is actually getting people's mindset to actually change as well, because people's mindsets is all based on, I want someone coming to see me, how to do this, so they can show me how it's done, or I know it's getting done, but it's there. When it's actually like technology and it's like cloud-based, people don't know if people are working for them or they're doing stuff. So why is this being done or is it not being done? I think so. It's that sort of mentality. So you have to sort of change that sort of mindset. And I think one of the good analogies is of that mindset, and again back from past to where we are now, is that when people had desktops, and well, people still do have desktops, but when people had desktops and they was connected to the internet, I think it used to be it used to be a cable plugged in. And if something goes wrong and they can't connect the internet, you just unplug the cable, plug it back in again. Then along come wireless. And wireless doesn't have cables plugged in, and things, unless it's the access point plugged into a ceiling somewhere. But really, your devices are connecting through invisible means. And the amount of customers we work with basically saying, why ain't my device working? Why is it not connected to the internet? And it's got a strong signal saying it's connected to the wireless access point, but it's not connected to the internet. And it's simply because the access points usually come overloaded, because it's got too many devices can connect to it. When it used to be you as a PC, it's only you connecting to that port on the network plugged in. And the same thing happens with cloud now. So cloud people can't see behind the scenes, they only see what's actually in front of them. And that's what basically causes a bit of confusion with people. That's why they want people on site. So our whole sort of thing is basically being, every time someone comes to site, it's obviously costing you money for the person to be there. If you've got someone scheduled to be at site all the time, what happens when that person comes to site on a Monday afternoon and they're there to do a specific job, but they've got no jobs done because there's no work and things. And then literally later in the week, something else happens, and then you do need someone there, but you can't get them there because they're not due to come around to the following week. I mean, so you have those sort of problems. So I wanted to actually create basically an IT sort of like service delivery around digital transformation, which actually supports customers on the journey of the full sort of cloud, where they actually get to understand why basically using the cloud technology is fundamentally helps them change themselves as an organisation. But also, not only does it do that, it also helps save money, which is obviously key in this current environment, what we're all in. So businesses and even like schools and public sector all need to look at save money. Cloud actually does that first and foremost. It also helps towards carbon reduction initiative goals as well, because you don't have to have desktops and you don't have to have servers and things on-prem and all that sort of stuff. And also, believe it or not, you don't have to basically include in your sort of carbon emission sort of targets people travelling to your site just to fix basically a problem with Gmail not working or Outlook clients not working and things like that. We then created a centralised model of where customers can just literally just phone up, email, or go to a service portal where you can ask a question, get some help, and someone remotely dials in. Now, that's actually whether you're using Apple Macs, whether you're using Windows machines, whether you're using Android, iOS devices, Linux. We can basically do remote to any of those sort of devices, and we help support those devices working within sort of like a Google Cloud ecosystem, but also lots of customers use Microsoft 365. So integrating in with those sort of two platforms, which just allows the customer to have all their stuff safe and secure within those sort of cloud platforms, where they can actually use that and access that anywhere, regardless of the hardware, what they're using. They should be able to use it for that. And then literally, if they need support, it's just literally a quick phone call to someone or a quick email or a quick sort of chat on the web and things like that. And someone can actually support that person as and when they need it, rather than waiting for someone to come around, which seems an inefficient way of doing things. Plus also it's saving money. So they're only paying for what they actually need, as opposed to actually paying that money for stuff they don't actually get. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really important. That's where we created our sort of whole vision around sort of like using the cloud and having that support around that sort of, around that infrastructure and stuff for that organisation.
Okay, that's great, Paul. Thank you for telling me all about the balance between using a cloud-based service as well as actually having people on site is sometimes useful, because a school will have their own IT department, someone who will be there and managing a lot of other things as well, I'm sure. But they do have that call out to you guys to use that ticketing system and get their problems solved or dialed in remotely to fix those issues, which is brilliant. Tell me a little bit about how you work with those sort of teams and the safety net approach.
When we designed our digital transformation services, it was in mind of making sure that we don't alienate basically relationships. So we know, so lots of smaller schools and smaller organisations, they usually can't afford to actually have basically someone dedicated to do IT. So they usually will come and talk to companies like ourselves to do that. But in our sort of environment, we're quite sort of niche where we specialise in our digital transformation around using the Google Cloud sort of like services and the Google. It's called end-to-end stack, which basically means anything Google, we look after. And where we sort of like expertise within that is that we understand that the local technician who a school might not have that expertise, and trying for them to keep up to date with training and understand things is also an effort in itself. And that person may have been really brilliant when they first come to that school to work in that school, and the school had a really good relationship with them and they got understanding that technology. But if that person's been there for 5 years or 10 years, it's likely that their technology is basically dropped off, because it's hard to keep on top of everything because technology is such a fast-moving sort of like environment.
Just going to cut in there, Paul, because I think also with budgets being tight at public sector, it's a case of that person who's based in the school will probably be pulled into doing other things as well. They may be doing the AV technician side of things. They may be, doing some maintenance or something. They'll be doing a lot of things. So to have you guys as specialists on call sounds like quite a cost-effective way than keep retraining and ploughing money into a one person who could leave within 6 months if they chose to as well. So yeah, tell me more about the way that you work with that on-site person.
Yeah. From that, like we were saying, so when we actually designed that, it was making sure that we got basically effectively like a safety net to actually create that for the actual end users, so like the technician they may have in the school, or even the IT team, because there's small IT teams out there as well who look after quite a few schools and businesses and stuff like that as well. And the idea is that we created a thing called a channel partnership, as it's called, where literally those teams, they basically provide that service to their customer, but they use us as their back end. So those, one from a managed service provider's point of view, like what these teams are, it's easy to be like basically a jack of all trades, knowing about Windows, knowing about Macs, knowing about Linux, and knowing about basically Microsoft and Google and all these sort of. But again, it's that sort of thing of trying to bring all that together and being up to date with all that sort of stuff. With this, with our sort of our thing is, we like to be one of the experts with Google, and we could be one of your streams to talk to you, so you can basically present yourself to your customers. We know Google because you've got safe in the hands that you've got Google experts who are sitting there who can support you, who can support your environment. Obviously, for smaller schools who we work with and smaller businesses who we work with directly, they use us for Google. And we just do direct Google support for them. We're their sort of safety net. When they've got a problem, they can phone up, or they can, like you said before, like raise a ticket type of thing, the normal type of support. But we've specialised just in the Google sort of cloud stuff. And I think as we've gone forward as a business, we've basically sort of really gone into that niche. This is what we do. And there's been things in the past, especially in the last few weeks actually, we've actually turned some business away because it doesn't fit to the profile what we actually do. And I think we've got to a stage now where this is where we are, and we're there to support basically our customers directly with Google sort of services, or if they've got their own IT teams, we support their IT teams directly, or if they work with other companies, we're happy to support those other companies providing that. But we're specialised in the Google side of things, and we're not really interested in the other sort of side of stuff as well. So I think that's always sometimes an issue when you're working with teams. I've come across it years ago that they think, oh, you're an IT technology company and you're going to take my job, or you're going to take my business, and it's anyone who works for us, that can't be further from the truth. We're just literally not interested in that side of things. We're just interested in actually providing our Google digital transformation services, getting people to understand how Google works, how you integrate that in with your sort of platforms, and giving you the best possible support so you can do the best possible services to your sort of like to your basic customers directly, or if you was a business, to your end users, or to your or for your school, to your learners within the school environment.
Paul, let's talk about strategy. We've heard a lot about how it can work, but how do you integrate that digital transformation?
It's always one of those questions where people basically sort of struggle. What is digital transformation? How do I start this? And it's getting that journey sort of right. So back in 2018, 2019, we created a strategy called Your Cloud. And I think breaking news, we're actually going to be changing it in the next few months, or next month or so, I think it is. We're going to change to Levett Cloud. It's sort of same strategy. But it's a strategy which I sort of created based on 7 pillars to help any organisation, whether you're basically a massive organisation or a small organisation, it just works for everyone. And we can help you implement that. It's really, really straightforward. It's based on seven sort of pillars. First, basically, pillar is making sure you have the right internet connectivity in place. Because when people are using Google Cloud technology and Microsoft Cloud and any sort of like internet technology, you need to make sure you've got the right sort of broadband connectivity sort of speed in place. And a lot of people just look at the advertising, what's out there, it's got marketing 100 megabits or basically 500 or gigabit and things like that. That's not the important part when we look for broadband. The important part is basically what is my upload speed, not my download speeds. Because when you're using a Google Docs or you're on a Microsoft 365 document, things when you're typing, you're uploading. Things when you're reading it, you're downloading. And people don't really get that bit sometimes. So you want to make sure that your upload speed is at least similar to what your download speed is to get the best optimal sort of experience using cloud technology. So we help basically people with their broadband as the first step. Build the foundation correctly with broadband. Then the next level is making sure you've got the right infrastructure to support your end users. And that's where your switches and your wireless and things, and making sure that's there. Now, usually what happens with that pieces of equipment, people buy it once and then forget about it until it breaks. But what people need to understand is with that sort of stuff, especially with cybersecurity and things, I know we've done a few podcasts about cybersecurity, that is literally the point where basically you can get attacked. So it's always important to make sure that your switching and your basically wireless hardware is up to standard and it is up to dated and it actually not end of life. Because once it's end of life, that's what attackers look for because they know the passwords and things get out on the internet, how to get access to that sort of equipment. So it's making sure that's right, but also making sure basically it's meeting the needs of your basically as your end users so they can connect quickly using their laptops or desktop devices and so on like that. Once you've got that bit in place, you've got the basic fundamentals of going to the cloud. Then basically our step sort of 3 is looking at what is the next, what cloud technology best suits me, whether that's Google, whether it's Microsoft. Obviously, we will say Google because we're Google, basically, it's sort of business. But platforms are both there. So you've got a cloud sort of platform. You choose the cloud platform what's best for yourself. It could be, I want to have Microsoft, but I like a bit what Google does. And that's where we as a business can integrate those platforms together. So you can work together with both platforms and vice versa. Once you've got that in place, the next step is, before you start bringing all your end users and all this stuff in to use those platforms, you need to look at the security of you as an organisation. What do you actually have in for your security? So you've got your hardware, you've got your cloud. How do you protect your end users to making sure you don't lose data within your systems and things like that? And I think in previous podcasts we said one of the weakest sort of things with any organisation is the end users using the systems. So you need to be making sure the end users are clued up on how to use that sort of technology and also understand basically the safety, how you actually work with the security of things. So when you see a software patch come through on your Windows machine or your Chrome device, don't ignore it, install it. There's a reason for it, it helps, that sort of stuff. So you need to make sure that's all in place. Then once you've got your security basically in place and you're happy with that, then you can start looking about, how do we manage our devices? Where are our devices? Are we basically people allowed to bring their own devices in to connect to our networks? Or are we going to be saying, no, they're going to use company devices? You make your own strategy about how you want that's done. But it's important then the devices, once you've got those in place, they connect to your cloud platform. So your IT teams or teams like yourselves can manage those devices and make it easy for you, that flexible, basically working environment. And once you've got that in place, then you can look at the nice things of what device do I like to use? So you can look at, I want an Apple Mac or I want the latest Windows Surface tablets and stuff like that. So you can look at those sort of things knowing that they all full well work within my sort of strategy. Once you've got that in place, the very last thing, what a lot of organisations sort of don't think about too much, is that once you spent all this money, all this stuff in place, but then you don't train your staff. And the most important thing is you need to train your staff and your end users, be that if you was a school, all your learners as well as your staff, so they know how to use that technology in a business, all your employees, things so they're actually getting empowered. Because once they know about how to use it all, they will use it effectively. The last thing you want to do as any organisation is have all this new stuff put in place and build all this stuff in place, and then literally end users will sit there moaning about it. So I know for an absolute fact, literally in central government number of years ago, they actually introduced Google basically technology within one of the government departments. And within basically 6 months, the government department wanted to get rid of Google because it just didn't work the way they wanted it to work. And they come and spoke to ourselves. And the main reason why it wasn't working the way it was, they never got trained. So the end users didn't know how to use the Gmail client properly. They didn't know how to use Docs properly. And when you show them how it's the equivalent in using Google as Google using Microsoft, they was thinking, oh, no one ever showed this before. And that's why training is so important, because if they don't do that, end users just switch off straight away. They ain't got time to sit here and use this new technology. If someone shows them how to use it, they can't get the same experience they had previously or better, they just switch off and not interested. So that's really important, is that training side of things. And then from the training, that lies into your support, where so your support teams are going to provide better support to your end users because you've got the right equipment in place, that the end users got an idea what actually how it all works, and the support teams can actually provide that better support for them as well. So we just called it basically, it's your cloud, but we will be changing it to a Levett cloud sort of like strategy. And it's those 7 sort of like quick steps, allows you to have that sort of strategy built in, which can like work for anyone.
I love that, Paul, and I love that there's those 7 steps that makes it super clear to integrate that strategy. And yeah, good for you naming it Levett Cloud. That's a little getting the name in there. That's a great forward motion for that service. Look, so we've got 2 more things I want to cover in this podcast. One is a case study, and then we're going to talk about a little trend of the month. So let's go into the case study first. Tell us about, it could be as little as £600, right?
What we've started doing at the moment, we've got a campaign going on within Essex as part of our commitment as a local business working in the local community, is that any basically Essex business, Essex school and things that are looking to actually looking at doing a digital transformation and want that cloud support service to help their own IT teams or to provide that sort of safety net basically for that organisation. We've got a special offer where we actually providing our service at £600 per annum and things guaranteed for 3 years and things for any sort of like business or basically school in Essex at the moment, and it's part of our local community initiative.
That's incredibly generous, and wow, for 3 years as well. That's big commitment, and so yeah, thank you for supplying that offer. How can people get in touch?
Yeah, so to get in touch, it's just literally go into our website, which is levettconsultancy.co.uk, or they can phone up on 01279 799 256, or listen to the adverts on basically Chelmsford Community Radio and things. Easy to reach out to us. You can go for our LinkedIn pages and stuff like that and our socials, so we're easy to get hold of.
Okay, it is that time of the show where we talk about top trends of the month. I was going to expect you to bring something about Google, but you've gone down Apple road. I know you're a big fan of Apple as well. Tell me, what have you discovered this month, Paul?
Literally earlier this month, and things towards the end of April, to be in fact, is that Apple literally have actually released, or Apple Business, formerly known as Apple Business Manager, or if you was in the United States, it's Apple Business Essentials. So Apple Business Manager has been around for a number of years in the UK and the European market, and it's always been a platform where you can actually go and buy your apps on volume as a business. So if you've got basically your mobile platform set up, whether that's in Google or Microsoft, to put apps out on your iPhone devices and things like that, you used to have Apple Manager, you put your volume purchase there, and it allowed you to install the apps on the devices. That's what essentially Apple Business Manager did. Schools have something similar called Apple School Manager and things like that, so it's very sort of similar. At the moment, this new bit's not available for schools, it's for businesses. But in the United States, they have a thing called Apple Business Essentials. And what the difference is between the two is the UK European version just allowed you to, the application purchasing of applications and purchasing apps for your sort of phones, while the US version allows you to actually manage your Apple Macs and your iPhone devices and your iPads. So you can actually create your own policies called blueprints to say what people can and can't do. And they also integrate with Microsoft and Google technology. So you can have the same username and password in your Microsoft world or your Google world, and it signs into your Apple devices. So it gives you that sort of like seamless integration and things. So from there, earlier, basically towards the end of April, Apple announced Apple Business is now available, and Apple Business brings all the features of Essentials. Now, there's only two caveats of that, is that they integrate perfectly with Google and Microsoft 365. When it integrates with Microsoft 365, Apple Business gives you single sign-on for your MacBook, so you can sign in your MacBook at your log-on screen with your Microsoft ID, and it signs you in with the same username, password, and stuff like that, and things. But some of the iCloud services are not fully available yet because they want you to use the Microsoft services because you're using Microsoft platforms. Google's gone a different route for that at the moment because they don't basically support a thing called Apple's basically single sign-on platform. And basically, literally on a Google device, you have to sign it. Sorry, on an Apple device, you have to sign in with a Apple Mac local account. But as soon as you sign in, because it knows it's a device which is managed by your Apple Business, it asks you to sign into iCloud, and it says it's company-owned device. You sign in with your iCloud account, which is your company account. So that would be your Google account, and then it gives you access to all your basically Apple iCloud stuff, but using your Google ID and your username and password. And if you change your password in your iCloud account, it changes it in Google. You change it in Google, it changes it in iCloud. So there's a best of both worlds. So you get all the Apple stuff, plus you get the best of Google sort of stuff as well. And to come with that is that literally start of May, Apple basically discontinued Pages, Keynote, and Numbers. The older versions of those, which are free for all Mac users and stuff, and iPhone and iOS users. But what they've done, they've created a new version of those, and they've put that as part of the Apple, Creator Studio. So they're now part of that. And they're still free. So they're still free to use for basically Apple, Mac, and iOS users. But you also have now the option to have some premium templates, or basically have applications as well. So a lot of people have heard of Adobe Creative Suite. So this is Apple's thing of trying to go after the Adobe sort of Creative Suite. So I've got my phone, so basically, apologies, I'm looking down at the list, I keep forgetting the name of the apps. So you've got 9 apps now as part of Adobe Creative Suite, Apple Creative Studio, which is basically Final Cut Pro is now included, Logic Pro is included, Pixel Beta Pro, which basically opens Photoshop files and Illustrator files, Keynote, Pages and Numbers, which we said before, and also Motion Animate and Compressor Encoded, plus topped off with Main Stage as well. And you've got your own stock library of photographs and videos which Apple created over years, which are also part of that sort of service as well. At the moment, Apple, if I look at it, look like they're charging $12.99 a month, basically for all that. And if you're a student and things, it's $2.99 a month, or basically I think it's like 32 quid for the year sort of thing for that. So they're like brand new, just like available and things. And yes, before they all integrate in with Google and stuff like that as well. So it's also what we're also talking about as well. So yeah, that's available as well. And I think there's one other thing we also need to make people aware of. We talk about some sort of like trends as well. There is a Microsoft bit of news, just for people if they're not aware of this. If you're using a Microsoft Windows 10 device, that's basically, they actually finish in October of this year, where people have to upgrade to Windows 11. But also, Microsoft had to update recently certificates, their security certificates, and everyone's got basically up to the 30th of June of this year to update the security certificates via the Windows Update services. And if you haven't basically applied those updates, please make sure you do. If you don't apply the updates after 30th of June and things, you forget about those, or you go beyond the October period where Windows 10 is no longer supported, then literally you might find application things not start working properly on your Windows device. So it's quite important. That's one of the sort of big things which come out earlier this week, to be fair. So that is literally this week's sort of news which will come through.
Paul, thank you so much, as ever, for bringing us the top trends. I'm going to be going home and updating my Microsoft, maybe even going up to Windows 11. I think that's really important, as that's coming around the corner anyway. And secondly, looking at that Apple suite as well. Sounds like a really good rival to the Adobe Creative Cloud. And as a creative person myself, being able to edit for $12.99 a month is an absolute bargain. So great that you've got the Apple stock library there as well. Of course, the most important thing that you've told us about today is that community offer that you're offering for the listeners. So that's from as little as £600 for the Levett Cloud, as it's going to be called, for guarantee for the next 3 years. So get in touch, levettconsultancy.co.uk, in order to open up a conversation and chat to Paul and his team about that. We will be back again next month for the next edition of Levett-ating podcast. So join us then, and thank you again to Chelmsford Community Radio for hosting this podcast.